really understand what you're trying to solve for, and then go after it with a razor sharp focus.
Welcome back to another installment of the Next Gen Case Study Series. On today's episode, we have Manjusha Gangadharan, who is the head of sales and partnerships at MinIO, where she oversees strategic collaborations and drives growth initiatives. With extensive experience in cloud native technologies, she plays a critical role in expanding MinIO's partner network globally. Based in the San Francisco Bay Area, Manjusha has helped position MinIO as a leading player in high performance object storage used widely across Fortune 500 companies, which is why we're excited to have her on the show. Welcome to the program.
Nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, the pleasure's all mine. I'm really excited to get into some of the work that you're doing with MinIO. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, Manjusha, I'd love to start with kind of a quick background, maybe a couple of minutes on who you are, where you came from, and how you ended up as the head of sales and partnerships at MinIO.
Sure. I started off wanting to be an architect, and I studied to be an architect. And then I sort of stumbled into IT, so to speak. I spent the first 2 decades of my life working with a global systems integrator called Wipro. I bounced around doing a lot of different roles. I like to joke that other than finance and HR, I think I may have done everything else, right from engineering, technical sales, marketing, sales, account management. And my last role at Wipro was as head of strategy of their technology business unit. And then I moved on to Seagate. I spent a couple of years at Seagate, where I was the vice president for professional services, business development, customer success for their live cloud services. And soon after that, I joined MinIO. And my first challenge here was to establish the partner network. And it's about a month ago that I've taken over the sales responsibility as well.
So, how long have you been with MinIO?
In October, it'll be 1 year.
Oh, wow. Congratulations. We're almost at the anniversary.
Yes, thank
That's
you.
that's really cool. So how has you mentioned that you went from kind of that role of partnerships and now you're kind of bridging the gap into sales. How
Mm.
else has your role evolved in the time that you've been there?
So at MinIO, we're a startup. We're a small team. We have grown our team size to about 110 people or so. So in this kind of environment, you wear several hats.
Right.
One is you do work on the JD, which is partnerships and sales, but you're also a part of the core leadership team, where you're really looking at what is the strategy for the product. How do we really take this to the market? Work very closely with the marketing team on what our messaging should be, and evolve different strategies on how we can serve our customers better.
Yeah, so there's this kind of natural evolution of, first being introduced to everything and everybody, well, all the things that are going on, and then you find this groove where you fit in, and the things that you're passionate about can kind of more come to the surface of the work that you're doing.
Exactly. And at the end of the day, it's really about the joint mission of what we want to achieve as an organization and the impact that we want to make in the industry. And all of us just align towards that mission.
That's a rare thing to find or to create or to build is kind of a uniform team that's aiming at a goal together. Um, where do you think that comes from? Is that kind of a top-down thing, or is this more just like finding the right talent for the right roles? How do you see that kind of playing out for Minayo?
I believe it is a top down as well as a bottom up thing. The
Okay.
the thing is that because the teams are so small and tightly integrated, all of us are aligned towards the same objective,
Mm,
right? There's a lot of credit which goes to our co-CEOs, Garima and AB, in outlining what that vision is and what the mission is. And then it's really up to the entire team to align towards that. There is a lot of emphasis on finding the right talent, making sure that culturally the team is aligned. And within MinIO, we really value and treasure and cherish culture. So it's very important for us that we find the right kind of people that fit into this MinIO family, and we're able to work well together. And the really nice thing about MinIO is the kind of diversity that we have within the organization.
Mm.
People from different walks of life, people from all over the world, and the ideas are just so fascinating when it all comes together. And I think that's what MinIO really stands for.
To nurture an environment or a culture inside of the company that empowers people to kind of do the work that they want to do, but also gives them purpose behind that. I see how that style of leadership is sort of taking over uh, the way that we do business, as opposed to the traditional, like, here's your marching orders, now go do your tasks and come back when those tasks are done so that you can take on more tasks.
Right.
Um, yeah, that's a really powerful way to kind of to nurture the team and build something really really meaningful out of it. How I wonder how some of your earlier influences have kind of helped you find a groove in MinIO.
I've been blessed with um, having the good fortune of working with many different people with different styles.
Hmm.
And I think that's really shaped me as a person and what my leadership style should be. Right from the command and control kind of leadership style to a little bit more mindful, more collaborative, more consensus driven, sometimes not so consensus driven. And those early influences sort of shaped the person I've become today. And I think my style of leadership tends to be collaborative. I like to make sure that me and my team, we're all having a lot of fun doing what we need to do. And it's also about a lot of trust and transparency.
Mm.
When you talked about how teams are empowered, and empowerment comes when you trust your team
Mm.
to do what they need to do. And they trust you to come to you with problems and blocks that they hope that you will be able to help them with. So
Yes,
it's that investment that you make in each other for each other's success and therefore the success of the company that I have seen being powerful in a leadership style.
it's almost an act of bravery in a sense of how much we must trust each other to kind of handle our responsibilities accordingly. And to kind of go like maybe from a different perspective, like when we walk down the street on the sidewalk, we trust that all the drivers and the cars on the road adjacent to us are going to keep their eyes on the road and stay focused on the task at hand. And beyond that, when we move that same kind of principle into business, there are functions of the business that, if you're not careful, can run over other people in the business. And so being at least mindful of that, uh,
Yes.
I think is super important. And I get a sense that um, that is a big part of the work that you do is having consideration for all of the players on the board and making sure that everybody's kind of doing what they're supposed to be doing. So in that vein, I wonder if maybe we could explore what some of the key milestones are that I get that, a year is a short time, but it's also a long enough time. But in the time that you've been with MinIO, what are some of the kind of key milestones, maybe like revenue wise, let's say, where did you start? Where are you at now? And what are some of the bigger goals that you're aiming at?
So we're a startup and a privately held company, so we really don't talk about our revenue. But suffice to say that we've been growing um, tremendously year over year. We have some very ambitious targets that we want to hit. But personally, for me in MinIO, I think some of the key milestones have been establishing the baseline for a partner framework, uh,
Mhm.
contributing in a significant manner to the ARR percentage by partners,
Hmm.
right? And also seeing a healthy pipeline which is being built out from the partner ecosystem. So that's been very encouraging, and it's been a great milestone for me personally. From a sales perspective, like I said, I've just taken over the role about a month ago.
Mhm.
And for me, the idea is to continue some of that successes that we've had in the partner side and bring it to the sales side to build a thriving pipeline and build um, predictable, accurate forecasts for our ARR moving forward. I think those are some of the key successes or milestones that I would look back on and sort of be happy about.
Right. Yeah, to be pleased that you have achieved those things. I think that was uh pride is a funny thing, right? To be proud of the work that you're doing is one thing, and I get that there's some negative connotation to that. So I love the idea of one should be able to orient oneself in a way that allows you to be happy or pleased if you achieve something. And so, yeah, that's really cool that that you were able to kind of reflect on that and see that. So when it comes to the healthy pipeline stuff, I'd love to zoom in on that a little bit. Can you walk me through maybe what the customer experience journey looks like right now in terms of, that point of discovery all the way to kind of making a deal that is mutually beneficial for everyone?
Oh, absolutely. So, MinIO has been in existence for about 10 years. And for the first 4 or 5 years of our existence, we were completely open source. We were free and available to everybody. And it's over the last 4 or 5 years that we really decided to provide more value to our customers, initially by providing support, and more recently by adding by putting together such a feature rich product which differentiates itself from the open source version which is available. And for the last 4 years, I would say about maybe 90% of our business was inbound, meaning there were people who would come in inbound wanting to experience MinIO and wanting to leverage the support that we would provide for production environments, mission critical kind of workloads, and so on. So the customer journey till quite recently was there is an interest in MinIO. They come in inbound through the various channels we have, email or chat or so on. And we have people who are engaged with them, trying to understand what their use case is, trying to understand what they're really trying to achieve, and then providing a solution for their business outcome. And based on which we are then able to close out on the transaction. And we have our customer engineering team who would then work very closely with the customer post sale. That's been the journey till recently. We now have a small sales team. And the reason for that is that we have our product is called Enterprise Object Store. And this is meant for large scale enterprises who need an object storage platform. And now the experience is that we do have our inbound team who still look at the leads that come in. And we have an outbound team who reaches out to customers actively and helps identify ways that we can help them achieve business outcomes. Now, through that journey, the idea is that the customer would engage with us, explain to us what they're trying to achieve. We work with them on a proof of concept. And the proof of concept is as near production as possible. And when the customer is ready to move to production, there's really no heavy lift that needs to happen. It's just business as usual, and you just continue. So the POC itself is geared in such a way that it's as near to production as possible. Once the customer is convinced of the value that we provide, we then close the deal, and we have our customer engineering team take over to continue providing satisfactory service and making sure that their deployment is successful.
So, okay, I have a question here. This is two things. Firstly, you mentioned at the very beginning that there was a lot of inbound, like 90% of the clients that you guys were acquiring came from inbound inquiry.
Plus,
What can you attribute that to? And I have a suspicion that it might be because the first 5 years the business was open source and free to use, and then eventually turned into some kind of paid model. What did that look like? And am I accurate in that assumption?
Well, we still have our open source product out there. So we did not switch off the open source product, right? So what had changed was when you want to have a production ready environment, customers do want to have support.
Mm,
They otherwise the production risk that you may take is tremendous, despite how amazing the product might be, right?
right.
And there may be some very specific use cases which require an additional level of um, consulting, advice, support, which is required from a company like MinIO to help them be successful. Right?
Okay.
So, one I attribute to customers beginning to use MinIO for production work rather than experimenting or small lab setups where there are some developers who are trying to come up with a solution. The scale at which they were going to deploy MinIO was much larger, and so they would prefer to work with someone like us. The second aspect, and I think that's the more powerful one, is the fact that we have an extremely strong marketing engine. And that really draws customers to our website, our content, and get a sense of what we are able to deliver. If you take a look at our website today, it's one of the most content rich websites that I've had the experience of working on. The amount of blogs that we have, the documentation, the resources, the white papers is just amazing. And the thing is that, when there is some customer out there or a prospect out there who's looking for an object storage platform solution, MinIO pops up on the searches. And once they do go into the website, I think they're very pleasantly surprised with the kind of material that we've been able to generate. And we have quite a few people who use the open source version and they're very happy with the product. They find our website so useful to be able to solve some of their problems on their own. And then you have the other set of customers who want more.
Right.
And so they come to us saying, okay, we want to have more. How can we collaborate even further? How can we look at deploying MinIO not just at a terabyte scale, but at multi-petabyte scale and even exabyte scale? Right.
Wow.
So I think there's a lot of credit which really needs to go to our marketing team and also to our engineering team for building such a solid product. And that really has contributed to the inbounds that have come in.
Yeah, that's incredible. That it just like it almost strikes me as like a freemium model, right? Like you come in, there's a part of it that's free, and then if you want to keep going with it, then you got to pay for the premium part of it. Uh,
Well, no, I would differentiate that because what we had was our open source version and the paid version, they were actually identical till
oh,
March of this year. The only difference at that point was the kind of support that we would provide. The open source version is not supported, right? You can use
ah,
the open source version. You cannot reach out to us and ask for help because it's open source, it's out there. You can leverage the community. There were 30,000 people on our Slack channel. This is the worldwide MinIO community. You can always go onto that public Slack channel and ask for help, and there will be somebody out there in the community that can help you. But
hmm,
if you do need some additional help from MinIO specifically, then you do need to go to the paid version.
right.
This was as of March earlier this year. Now, as of March, the difference that we've made is the open source version still exists, but there is a difference in the enterprise version that we provide now. And the
Right.
enterprise version is a lot more richer. There are a lot more features that customers can leverage,
Hmm.
but we continue to have the open source version out there. And that will be maintained and patched and provide all the kind of development work which will go into it. So it wasn't really a freemium.
Right.
because both products were exactly the same.
Yeah, and the distinction that I think needed to be made, from my understanding, was the service and support side of it, where it was like, oh, actually, we just need somebody to handle it versus we're going to build it all on our own. And so I get that part makes it really, really powerful. So then when it comes to the marketing engine, then you
Mhm,
said it's a very strong one. And the first thing that I picked up on was I understand that the solutions that you provide are complex.
mhm,
There are maybe a lot of moving parts, or maybe there's a deeper understanding in order to actually like use it, and the average Joe maybe doesn't fully understand that kind of stuff. So in any sort of business where there is a level of education required, you kind of take on this secondary role of becoming a media company where you're just producing content that serves that group of people. And that's what kind of attracts them or brings them in or helps them find you easier.
mhm.
Now, is that true? And also, what else makes the marketing engine so strong in MinIO?
Um, I would say that's not co- completely true because MinIO is an S3 compatible object storage platform. Now, AWS, they are the pioneers in S3, and they created a public cloud using the S3 protocols, right? And what MinIO has done is to create an object storage platform leveraging the same S3 compatibility, but customers can now build their own private cloud using MinIO. So lucky for us, AWS had already done some education in the market. I think what we needed to educate customers with is the art of the possible, having an object storage platform that they can have in house on their premises, on their hardware, and still have that public cloud like experience.
Ah,
So, what our marketing team really did was to highlight that difference, highlight the different kinds of use cases that can be leveraged using MinIO, and also to go into the technical depth of how MinIO can be leveraged.
hmm,
So if you take a look at our website, you'll see that there's a lot of how-to guides. There is a lot of very detailed documentation on how you can integrate MinIO with other applications. And MinIO is also the fastest object storage platform on the planet. And we are the only ones to publish our benchmarks. Most others don't really publish their benchmarks, and we're the only
right.
ones who do. And there are several reasons for that. So I think what the marketing team really did was to bring out all of that technical content in a way that is palatable to a wide range of people, whether it is highly technical, hands-on engineers and developers, or business decision makers. We were able to straddle that spectrum
Mhm.
of users that could potentially be leveraging MinIO.
Yeah, it's almost adjacent to put the product in the customer's hands, let them have it, experience it, see it, feel it, go through it.
Yes.
And then from there that they're just so in love that there's really no other option for them to
Exactly. I
to
think
go
you just
anywhere.
got it spot on. And that's exactly the vision that our founders had, that create such a simple, minimalistic, easy to use product, delight the customer. I think that's the
Right.
most favorite catchphrase of our co-CEO, AB. Delight the customer. Find ways to delight the customer all the time, whether it is with support, whether it is with features, whether it is with the ease of use, their interactions with the sales team. Our founders have a maniacal obsession with customer experience, right? To the
Yeah.
detail of our website, our logo, how the product is positioned, how an engineer can very quickly get MinIO up and running. I
Mm.
mean, I can tell you a story of a customer who was able to have MinIO up and running in over 100 nodes over a weekend. And that, to the point that this customer has now said, MinIO just works.
Right.
It's so simple. It just works. We have other customers who essentially support large MinIO deployments on their hardware with hardly one or two people to manage the entire petabyte scale, exabyte scale deployment. It's that simple.
It's unbelievable, and that's a testament to the vision I think the founders had when kind of creating this new approach to things. So,
Yes.
Manjusha, you've been very generous with your time, and I'm very grateful for that. And as we kind of come to a close with our time together here, I wonder if we can kind of look forward at some of the bigger goals that you're aiming at. You mentioned earlier on in the conversation that yes, you've only been here for a year in October, but you have some big plans in store. Can you kind of explore some of those plans with us?
Absolutely. I think the key is with the EOS version of our product now out there, the idea is to take that message to as many enterprises as possible.
Hmm.
How can Enterprise Object Store really help you with your AI requirements, with your data lake, ML requirements, and so on, right? So I think the big plans that I really have is to help this company grow, to help build a very strong partner ecosystem, um, go deep with a few set of strategic partners, and see how we can delight customers every single day.
So am in love with this idea of delighting the customers. I think I liken it to Disney's magical moments, or just any time somebody goes above and beyond to make sure that you're happy with your experience, and that's uh, for a brief period of time there, I felt like it was missing in business, and so it's very refreshing to hear that that's a focus that you guys are aiming at. This has been really cool. To close the conversation off, Manjusha, I wonder if you had a piece of advice that you could offer somebody who's out there, kind of in a similar position as you, kind of facing some challenges. What would that advice be?
I think the advice that I would have is make things simple,
Mm,
right? Really understand what you're trying to solve for, and then go after it with a razor sharp focus. Make sure that your team is aligned constantly. Communicate, over communicate,
mm.
so that everybody is aligned to the mission, and simplify things as much as possible. I think that's the advice that I would have.
That's actually reminded me of one of my favorite uh, I guess, kind of tidbits of information. I think it came from Steve Jobs about how um, beauty is when you have stripped everything away from it and it still represents the thing that it stood for in the beginning. And so there's this simplicity that comes from taking everything away that you don't need until you have that singular focus. I love that as a guiding star in the work that you guys are doing. This has been wonderful. If somebody wants to reach out to you, Manjusha, to maybe pick your brain further or work with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
You can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to help. I'm happy to mentor. I am happy to provide any advice. Yeah, reach out to me on LinkedIn anytime.
Beautiful. We'll make sure to link to that in the show notes for anybody that's listening and watching and they want to reach out to you. They can do it easily from there. And on that note, if you wanted to get in touch with me and my team for any of your marketing needs, you can visit nextgengrowth.com. Otherwise, that's it for this episode. Thanks for joining us for this conversation, and I will see you in the next.